Oh my God. Hello. Welcome to Pod Mavericks After Dark. I'm Kirk Henderson. Tonight I am joined by Matthew Phillips, regular contributor over at MavsMoneyball.com. Josh is out for the night. He picked a doozy to miss. Matt, how are you?
I am wonderful. That was a wild and crazy game.
I almost feel like you ever go out a little too hard and then you kind of power through, you're tired and you're just like, I need to go to bed, but I shouldn't because I need to kind of come down. This is as close as I've felt to I don't know, kind of the Clippers games in 2020 in the bubble where it was just like nails on a chalkboard, like fuck. Because we beat the shit out of the Phoenix Suns several years ago in the playoffs. And then the Warriors just kind of owned the Mavericks. Like there was not a lot of tension relative over like a huge game series. This game for 10 minutes was the most tense experience I've had in the Mavericks game in a long time as I can remember.
So AJ Lawson being an integral part of your game-winning lineup attempts is always, I think, going to lead to a very stressful situation. But in general, I really enjoyed the game. It was a lot of fun. You talk about being tired. I feel like the Mavs as a team, and especially Luka, this is going to go full nerd. But I feel a lot like if you remember in Dragon Ball Z when Goku first fought Vegeta, when he did the Kaioken attack for the first time, and then his body was just shredded. He was exhausted. I feel like that's how Luka was throughout the game. Like at the end, he was just completely out of gas. And I mean, he played 46 minutes. It's obviously no way to not be out of gas. But that's what I thought of immediately. It was just him being just, man, that was an epic effort on his part and on the Mavs part as a whole. And it's just sad to see him come up a little short.
Well, so if you're a casual Mavs fan or a fan who took Saturday night off because you wanted to watch some college football or do something a little different, because once you saw the injury report that half the Mavericks team was out, I mean, it was Kyrie, it was Dante Exum, it was Tim Hardaway Jr. and Josh Green and Maxi Kleber. So really, that's 5 theoretic rotation players. If you would have checked out for this game, wouldn't have blamed you. Josh did, because he was like, all right, well, I have the opportunity to go do something with my wife and I'm just going to kind of check out. And what we tend to do in these games is try to give like a brief recap of what happened. You wrote the recap tonight and I'll just sort of summarize your recap for you. Mavericks not very good in the first half, and then really through the first, 36 to 38 minutes of the game, the Oklahoma City Thunder shot the hell out of the ball from beyond the arc, which was really, call it what you will. My favorite was Brian Damaris after the game saying, well, Derek Lively did a good job protecting the paint. The Mavericks only gave up 42 there. Yes, but that's because they were getting shelled from beyond the arc for most of the contest. And it really was something else to the point to where I think you probably had a fully written recap. You were probably about 400 words in and you're like, I'm ready to turn this in. And then, why don't you walk us through what the hell happened when the Mavericks came back? Because I don't think I can accurately describe it.
So actually, I wrote 3 recaps for this game because I wrote the Mavs lost. I had written the Mavs lose by 20. They just didn't have the horses tonight. Everybody was hurt. They made the one run, and then Jaden Hardy happened at the end of the third quarter. So then I wrote another one where the Mavs have this epic comeback win. Big Papa Doncic is a thing. All of this stuff, like everything's exciting. And then I wrote the actual recap, which is both of those things happened and they still lost. To me, the biggest point of the turnaround of the 30-0 run, which was just incredible to behold, But the biggest part of it was obviously AJ Lawson made the 2 above the break threes. But to me, the most important part of that wasn't him making the threes. It was the next possession when the Thunder overreacted. And so they had been trapping Luka the whole game, which it's very rare for teams to trap an NBA player for an entire game. Simply because
it was the whole game. You're not kidding.
Like, it's literally the whole game. The closest thing I've seen to it is, I've seen Luka get trapped before, but this wasn't like, just to clarify to people who maybe didn't see the whole game, this wasn't Luka calls for a screen and then both of the people in the pick and roll go with Luka. This was when Luka crosses half court, 2 defenders come to him for virtually the whole game. And the only time I've really ever seen that is James Harden in his peak back in Houston. It was crazy. And I think Luka did a really good job of accepting the doubles and allowing Lively to play in space out of that. Like, he accepted the doubles and made the play before the play in a way that I really haven't seen him do at times, because he gets really, really, he wants to be the guy that makes play. And he made some wild passes today. Like, he had a couple that his shooters missed, so they won't end up on highlight reels, but he had some wild passes that were just amazing. And so anyway, to get back to what I was talking about. So they're doubling. AJ Lawson makes 2 above the break threes. The Thunder then, and they'd been letting people shoot the whole game, and the Mavs had like Dennis had shot some and they had looked horrible. Grant Williams had shot some and they looked horrible. Just the whole team had shot. Well, AJ Lawson made 2, and then the whole team came over and they adjusted and they rotated up to Lawson and left Seth Curry wide open in the corner. And Curry made a 3. And then after that, it really put the Thunder really started rotating to shooters, which truly put them in rotation for the first time in the game. Because they had, both teams, the dirty secret of this game is in the first half, both teams were getting wide open threes. It was just a matter of the Thunder had better shooters shooting theirs. And I know it's fun to be like, oh, shooting variance, that. Like, most of the Thunder threes in the first half, nobody was in the picture. Like, they were so wide open. And most of the people that are making them are good shooters. So then the Mavs started making those. Then they got a couple of Luka drives, and then they got Lively finishes, and they got some offensive rebounds because the Thunder were so spaced out. And the Thunder were shell-shocked. And I want to say they took 3 timeouts during that run. Like, it's very rare that you get because there's either 2 or 3, but it's very rare that you get multiple timeout runs. Mm-hmm. But
I remember a few during the Carlisle Luka Maverick era where we were just like, because third quarters were constant pain. But yeah, they were trying to pull themselves out of it. This was not we're asleep at the wheel for 3 minutes. It was, how long was the run? I had the game thing pulled up, but it was incredible. One thing I want you to keep going, but one thing that is pretty incredible about this is you're talking about the Luka passes. One thing I just kept laughing about in the first quarter most of the game was the Thunder were perfectly happy letting Derek Jones Jr. shoot threes. That is an ideal outcome when that team is on the floor, where Luka's kicking out to him or Derek Lively's passing out to him. Derek Jones Jr. previous high 3-point shot attempt games. He had a 9 3-point game earlier this year. He had 1 in 2020, and then he had 2 games earlier than that with 8 3-point attempts. He had 12 tonight and was pretty fucking awesome. He had damn it, I just clicked away from his numbers too. Yeah, he shot 50%. Without his contributions, it was just really incredible to where the Thunder were perfectly happy selling out on like Luka and everybody else and hoping that the other Mavericks would beat him. And the other Mavericks damn near did.
Yeah, like it was insane. Luka obviously also went full on, supernova, Super Saiyan, whatever you want to call it. Like, he went absolutely nuts. He had, I think, 36, 15, and 18, which just sounds fake. Especially
that's not real. Yeah.
Especially when you realize, and 2 steals and 2 blocks. And one of those blocks was a really big block in that run where he rotated down to be the low man.
It was a one that very easily, had he mistimed where he places his hands, he could have been called for a hack because it was from behind and kind of almost from across. And refs love to give guys the benefit of the doubt in that situation because it usually is a foul, but he blocked the hell out of the ball.
Yeah, and that's one of the things with Luka is, he really is. You don't talk about Luka as a wingspan guy, just because of, I mean, how he's built. He's obviously a little thicker. I joked in the thing that he's always had a dad bod. Now he's a dad, but he like, you don't think about it, but I mean, he's got a 7-ish foot wingspan, and I mean, he's a bigger guy, obviously, and so he used that to rotate. I think whenever the Mavs are at their best, he's going to be a power forward defensively eventually. So, I mean, going through that, like, it was just fun. And then it was so deflating just because you could see how much energy they used. What really killed them, in my opinion, is that, and I guess this is going to be where I'm going to start going negative, and I don't mean to upset Jason Kidd, but it's a necessary part of this game to discuss. They made the big run in the third to get it down to, I believe they were down 9. Yep. And then Jaden Hardy happened. And I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter that it was Jaden Hardy and Dwight Powell. And Dwight Powell wasn't good, but it was – Jaden Hardy's been bad this year, man. Yeah, he was especially bad there. That doesn't mean
he did make some nice passes tonight, but overall that stretch was really bad for him.
So we've always called him a hooper and everything, and we talk about that, and he is a hooper. But what he's been this year is the guy in pickup basketball that thinks he's the best player on the court, that dribbles 47 and a half times in a possession, and then, holds the ball for like 35 seconds in a pickup game and does all that and then shoots. And it's just that everybody hates to play with. Not because he's super anything else, but he can't beat people off the dribble has been his biggest problem this year. Is he can't beat anyone.
And he really thinks he can.
There were multiple possessions in this game where he had Chet Holmgren with a live dribble and everything, and he just couldn't do anything. Like, it didn't work. He was in jail.
No, because he doesn't have a good first step, and his handle is loose.
Yeah, and I've seen a bunch of the chat mention the travel at the end. Yes,
it sucked. It was a travel.
I want to clarify 2 things. Yes, it was a travel. Yes, it happens 100 times a game, and if you're going to call it, that's a rough spot to call it. And yes, Jalen Williams traveled on the next play, did exactly the same thing. All of that stuff being said, there was a point in this game where the Mavs had like a 34-11 free throw shooting advantage. I am absolutely the king of the refs suck, the refs screwed Dallas, yada, yada, yada. This is not the game for that. No. The refs quietly kept Dallas to the extent that they were in the game for large portions of this game. The refs kept Dallas in this game.
I think that's true. Yeah.
Like, it's just it's a rough call. It's annoying. It was a travel. It is what it is. Like, it is what it is. That should not be a talking point. What should be a talking point that I've seen mentioned in the chat, and I feel is a very important thing going forward, is the Derek Lively development. The most important thing is what he showed today is a skill that I haven't really seen from him at any level. He's always been a good short roll passer. Like, he showed flashes of that. I think I did his write-up for the when he was a prospect before we drafted him, and I mentioned his passing in that. He's had that. He had several good passes early in this game where I don't think he had any assists because I think the shooters missed all of them.
Yep, but he had good. Yeah, he was good at moving the ball. Mm-hmm.
But what he showed today as a counter to that is the ability to score with force from the initial short roll. So a lot of time, like, there's one thing for a screen and roll big to be a guy who can set a screen and then dive to the rim and catch lobs. Like, he's shown that he can do that. He has a ginormous wingspan. Luka loves throwing him lobs. Like, he's shown that. Like, he's established that skill. What he showed in this game that is a new thing and potentially a very eye-opening skill for him is the dunk on Chet, and then the other play later in the game. Like, I don't remember exactly when it was, but it's sometime in the fourth where he caught the ball. He caught the ball in both of those plays, probably 12-ish feet from the basket.
He looked to score. Score. I know which ones you're talking about.
And then one dribble got to the rim. One was the big dunk on Chet, and then the other one was like a lefty layup, I believe. And just both of those, if he has the ability to be able to score from the initial short roll, like if he can get to the rim and score from there, that is an absolutely huge development because it's just another option to go to. It basically takes the place of a post game. Like, a lot of times we talk about players that are big as the ability to develop a post game as a way to counter switches and stuff like that. That is a big thing for him. And then obviously all the blocks and points and rebounds. Like, he was great.
Well, what was so interesting was I remember thinking he kicked one out to Olivier Maxence Prosper at one point, and it was on a short roll. And I remember, I think I typed it to my friend Tyler on Twitter, and I said, I need him to attack the rim. I just need, like, don't pass it to a guy who, like, shoots. Oh, like, I'm sorry, like Max, Omax, I'm going to love him one day. Omax played hard today when he was out there, but Omax can't shoot. It's a trebuchet. It's terrifying. You never know where the ball is going to go when he shoots it. And I just remember thinking, all right, I need him to try to, he might not get it, but I need him to try. And then he started trying that game. The oops are incredible because, that a lot of that is Luka's manipulation of stuff and him going to the right space. But the ability to make the decision to attack the rim, not commit charges, at least he didn't tonight, and, either lay it in, dunk the bejesus out of it, because he really is wildly athletic. Some of the plays he makes, oh my God. I mean, that was just easily, Luka's game is what it is. If you're not enthused by it because, it's maddening that he needed to do that much, okay. But I really loved watching Omax play tonight. I not Omax, Lively. And that's just so much, the chat is quite rightfully really excited about it. It just goes back, if some of the bigs they've had over the years, it makes you frustrated that that's what they settled for when there are guys out there. Like one of the players who I think multiple people really wanted to pair with Luka for years was John Collins. And he was making like the John Collins, second and third year decision type stuff where he was, looking like an all-star. Like I it seems a little silly. I mean, I'm really enthusiastic about it, Lively right now, because just him and Chet Holmgren bringing the American big man back to the forefront. I mean, I couldn't be more excited about that guy after this game.
Yeah, like to me, he probably, like, Luka's brilliant. Okay, that's like, news at 11. That's a thing that's just to be expected. So, you don't want to take it too for granted. But Lively obviously is a very important development for the Mavs' future. He also had a kick out to Grant that Luka talked to him about afterwards and was like, just go up, man. He's like, just go try to finish it. And he was 9 of 9 from the field, so obviously he made all those. I think he was 2 of 5 from the free throw line. But when you talk about him being wildly athletic, he is obviously wildly athletic. But I think perhaps even more important than that is that he's extremely coordinated, which – I don't think that gets enough credit for how important that is for people. Like JaVale McGee is a wild athlete. Like JaVale McGee is an absolutely insane athlete as far as his size and ability to run and jump and all that stuff. Like he's top tier in the history of the world as far as people that size and that athletic, but he's not coordinated. And that's why he ends up doing a bunch of crazy stuff. And he ends up looking like a spider with roller skates on. But Lively can control his limbs, and that's one of the things that's always made Gobert impressive. That's one of Gobert's primary skills, and Lively has that too, where his body is under control, and so that is what is very important to me. Is that, and his whole game's under control too. Like my major concern with him was I thought he would commit 7 billion fouls this season. I didn't think he was going to play, not because I didn't think, like, I trust Kid to develop young players, especially young, like that's one of Kid's strengths. Is Kid has done well with young players. But what I was concerned with was I thought he would foul a ton. I also thought, speaking of things that can be developments going forward, today was the most aggressive he's been defensively as far as actually going for blocks. The Mavs have done a ton of things where they funnel stuff to him, but it's been a little incongruous because they funnel plays to him, but Lively has also clearly been taught, like, don't foul above all else. And today I thought he did a really good job of being aggressive without fouling, and he had 6 or 7 blocks. I'm not sure, depending on which way the box score showed it.
I think, but really just great challenges. Do you think he outplayed Chet? Be honest.
I do, but also, like, Chet's really good, man.
Oh my God.
Like Chet was good today too. Chet was good in a different way.
Chet's like scared. Chet's terrifying. Like Chet is a guy on his own where I'm like, oh no, that guy's a problem.
To me, Chet is. We're gonna not go into one of my other things, but to me, Chet's clearly been the rookie of the year so far.
Rookie of the year for sure. Yeah, I think that's true.
But he was really good today too. I think he had 4 or 5 blocks.
He had 11 points, 11 boards, 5 blocks, 3 assists, and a steal. Yeah. That's also a wash. Those two, like the statistical impact is right there, but like talk about a battle of future bigs. Like, my goodness, I just love it.
I'm just glad that we have someone that can compete on that level. Speaking of Chet and his blocks, but man, AJ, especially after you've made a couple, just let it fly, buddy. Don't go in and just serve up blocks for Chet. That ended up being a really important part of the game. Like, you can't complain about AJ Lawson. I was getting ready to type that this was the AJ Lawson game. That was part of my second recap was, hey, this is the AJ Lawson game. Like, we've had the Raymond Felton game and the Corey Brewer games throughout the years. But this was going to be the AJ Lawson game, and then it kind of fell apart at the end.
I think that's
also right. on negative ends, the fact that Kidd went with the decision to close with AJ Lawson over Grant, and more importantly, that it was the correct decision to do so.
Mm-hmm. I think that's true.
That's a very concerning thing. Like, Grant hasn't been good for a while. I know he played pretty well last night. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't watch the game.
No, he shot himself out of his slump. He did not play well. Like, he made a decision tonight. Like, Grant Williams can't jump over a phone book, and he made a decision on a fast break tonight to challenge Chet at the rim. Got his shit thrown back in his face, and then whined about it to the ref. And it's like, how about you don't do the dumb thing?
Yeah,
it's what are you doing?
It's also funny. Something that I thought was amusing is, so the Mavs were like just crying out for any type of way to create offense other than Luka Doncic's pick and roll, because and obviously, to be fair, with Kyrie Irving and Tim Hardaway Jr., they're second and third best offensive players out of the game. It makes sense, but it makes sense for them to struggle. Like, if you take that much shot creation out of anyone's lineup, obviously they're going to have problems. But the one play in the first half where we had like a Grant 17 dribble possession where he like dribbled it up from the lane, posted, did like 4 spin moves, and then got packed, but also he did get fouled. But
I was just like, though, on that. That looked like that. Did you see that play flying around in college yesterday where the guy blocked the shot? The
most disrespectful block in the history of basketball,
and then threw the ball at him on the ground. Like, that's what happened to Grant Williams there, only he got fouled. Like, it was I'm not gonna pile on Grant throughout the season because I think he's just a connecting piece. But he plays too big for his britches, just to be quite candid. Like, he goes out and throws his chest around and talks a lot of shit. And then what did he do tonight? Let's go see here. He was 1 for 6 with 1 rebound and 1 assist. Congratulations. Like, I'm saying, Anyway, all right. I have to shill for a second. So I try to do this around the 12-minute mark, but you and I were having too much fun. If you guys could do me a favor and go ahead and like the stream, and if you could leave a comment on this particular video after we're done, just go to the bottom of it, leave me a note. I like reading those things. Even if you tell me you hate me, shout out to the guy from a couple days ago who said that Josh and I must be angling for jobs with the Mavericks. I will never forget that. You are my favorite YouTube commenter because they don't like me very much over there. So I'm doing a very good job trying to get a job. If you could also consider subscribing. We try to do a lot of these shows. I have a newborn baby as well, like Luka and Dante Exum, and so some nights are a little more chaotic than others. So while I usually try to do 2 live shows after every game, I've been pretty lax about it. Definitely going to do one tonight, though, because I want to hear people's takes on things. We got a couple folks in the chat who I hope come along who are really pissed, and I want to talk to them, and I want to, because I kind of come out of this game. All right. So let's get back to talking about the Mavericks here. I come out of this game it was a great game. I take nothing else away from it. Like, Lively looks good, but I don't take any team constructs away from that because their defensive principles are still bad. They played a lot of zone, and that flustered the Thunder. They're not going to do that game to game. Their offense is still, it's either you hit some threes, Derek Jones is going to cut to the rim on occasion. It's either Kyrie or Luka gets to the inside. There's not a lot of off-ball movement, whether that's on Luka or not, whoever you want to blame it on. The Mavericks offense is what it is. I still think that by and large, if they are healthy, they will win 5.5 out of every 10 games. I don't know. They're gonna, there's a lot of people that still think this isn't a playoff team, but your first 20 games is incredibly indicative of how you finish the season. The NBA has done studies on this. John Schulman at NBA.com did one several years ago. How you start the year in your first 20 tends to dictate things, almost always. And the Mavericks have a brutal schedule coming up just in terms of game after game after game after game. That's going to really hurt them, I think, because they've had some real rest advantage to start the season. But if you were to tell me that 11, are they 11-8? 11-8 with this team is shocking compared to what I was sort of hoping for. I was hoping for 500, like, period. 11-8 is, I'm delighted, you know?
Yeah, so Bill Simmons talks about a lot. He calls people good, bad teams, which is teams who are what he means when he says good, bad teams, which I hear him talk about it more for football than basketball. But when he talks about it for football, what he means is it's a team that's a bad team, but they're better than all the other bad teams, so they beat all of the bad teams. And I think the Mavs have a lot of that in them now. I'm not comfortable calling the Mavs a bad team right now. I still think there's some potential for other things. I think Omax will develop through the year. I don't know how important he'll be this year, but I'm hopeful for some stuff by the end of the regular season that he is at least semi-useful. I think Lively will continue to develop and so on, and Luka and Kyrie. Obviously, Kyrie will be back healthy at some point. But the Mavs are going to beat bad teams.
As long as you're beating bad teams, that gives you a lot of. That's why last night's loss sucked.
Yeah, and I think also I think Luka, like, his stats don't necessarily reflect it because they were obviously otherworldly. Like, his stats are always going to be otherworldly. That's a product of his combination of talent and role. But I think he's materially better this year. I think he's been better defensively. He's not great. This was also, by the way, for random things that are true that sound like a lie. Luka is every bit the bad transition defender that he gets that people on the internet talk about him being.
Oh yeah.
This was his best transition defensive game of his career.
Why? What was he doing?
Well, one, he had 2 blocks in transition. He blocked a 3 in transition and he blocked a layup in transition.
That was the 3 in transition was hilarious.
Yeah, he actually got back. He ran hard. Like, his effort level in this game was unreal. You can't sustain 46 minutes of that level of effort every night. Like, it's just, he'll fall apart by like game 30. But he tried so hard. He played hard. And for the most part now, partially that's because, he had shot 14 free throws in the first 3 quarters. But for the most part, he wasn't really complaining, other than I think he complained once before the travel at the end. So he really was, like, he was back. Like, his effort to me was noticeable in getting back, which maybe that's just because of how noticeable it often is in a negative light. So for today, like, especially, like, I really noticed that he got back a lot. And then just looking at them, I think they'll be bad teams. I think their offense is not pretty in the sense that it's not like a beautiful game Spurs movement from like the 2014 or something like that. But the offense gets the right kind of shots for the most part. They get threes. Luka can still get to the rim. Kyrie can get to the rim. I just really think, and I think Luka's better defensively. Like, he's not. I know they made a big point of talking about how great he's been defensively this year the other day. He hasn't been great. Like, that's not.
He's held up in ISO spots where he used to be like, where he used to just basically like escort someone to the rim and allow them to score. And it's like he's gone from being terrible to being, I don't hate it. And like, that's kind of good enough for me.
Like, and he's always been a guy that when he wants to defend for a few possessions late, he can score. Like, it's the dirty secret is that most stars at his level, like, aren't that great defensively. Like, not because they're not good defensively, but because they don't try. Like, it's just, there's a limit. You have a turbo meter limit, like a video game, and you can't use it all the time. And so, like, it's not going to be a thing for him to ever be a lockdown defender. Like, he's not ever going to be an all-NBA defender. But he's been, I would say, on balance, I would say he's been basically an average NBA defender this year, which relative to what he was last year is a huge win.
Yeah, and Alex in the chat says, Luka is a good defender. I will die on this hill. Well, most NBA players at superstar levels, most are capable of being good defenders just because it's almost impossible to be that good offensively without knowing what you're supposed to do defensively. Being able to do it and having the repetitions and sort of the muscle memory to do it are a little bit different. But Luka knows what to do. He's 6'8". He's strong as an ox. If he just tries a little bit, he's been really good at sliding his feet and taking the bump in the chest. Like, a lot of times when guys drive on him, and in the past, the first step is almost always what burns Luka, at least last year. And so watching him try now, it's not good, but it works, and it's good enough some nights. There are times though, like it wasn't the Memphis game. Was it the Rockets game? There have been a couple of games recently where it's really gotten bad. It might have been the Clippers. I think it was actually, that Clippers game out there in Los Angeles where they looked like they had a great time.
He struggled against the Clippers defensively. Like
it was games. And so I don't know. I got a guy in the chat with me, 17, arguing that Lively is skinny as shit. You can argue with me. I've stood next to him in person. Okay. I've stood next to the guy in person. I played with 7-footers in high school. He weighs 230 pounds. Like Dirk weighed 240. I don't know. Why are we arguing about this? He's not a little guy. Like you can trust me because I've seen it. I've been there. You haven't. Please stop.
Well, the thing about that is, most NBA players are super skinny compared to most regular athletes. Like this, because
Tyson
the NBA
Chandler was he was rail thin in person.
Yeah, I mean, like outside of like LeBron and Zion and Luka, generally speaking, most NBA players are very skinny. Like especially me, like I'm a very large person. And he so it's weird to me. Like, so if you're talking like normal person, sure, okay, he's skinny, but like he's bigger than, like you mentioned Tyson, he's bigger than Tyson was.
Well, the argument is likely, and I'm not necessarily following this, but the argument is probably can Lively guard Embiid, Gobert, and maybe like a Karl Towns and a Jokic? And the answer to that question right now is no. But neither can anybody else guard Jokic or Embiid. It doesn't matter. You have to be able to be a set of resistance for a certain period of time. That's the goal. Like you don't want to die. That's what watching Dwight Powell just get murdered is not fun for me. So
yeah,
sorry.
the answer to that question. No, you're good. The answer to that question as to who can he guard those people? Embiid, resounding no. Jokic, no. Resounding, like the most resounding possible no. Gobert, yes. Karl Anthony Towns, I would say yes. I mean, the greatest shooting big man of all time. He's a self-check.
I want to see it now because like Lively got that rude in what do you want to call it, awakening when the first two games he played as an NBA player in preseason over in Abu Dhabi were against Karl Towns and Rudy Gobert, where Lively's probably been the biggest player on the court in every game of his life up until then. And then he had to go against that guy on Real Madrid who was 7'4". And then he had it's just like watching Lively come of age has been really delightful.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I see a Hardwood Proxim in the chat. Two things. One, on the plus minus stats, today is a great example of why on off is not that great of a predictor, because Luka's on off was negative, but that's because he played the whole game and they lost. And he absorbed the negative minutes from Jaden Hardy.
Well, he did. He was pretty negative at a certain point in the game, though. Like he was like a negative 17, but but that's why you don't use it. Like the fact that he finished -7 is largely because the last 6 points happened. Like you would have been pretty even for the game, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's my point though. Is it's dependent. Like the vast majority of that negative is the -17 in Jaden Hardy's minutes because they were also all in Luka's minutes. Sure. And then the other part of that is just to clarify, I am not at all implying that Luka, Zion, and LeBron have similar body types. I am simply saying that they are all trying to say that they are the same body types.
No, well, I mean, that's what makes the NBA so ridiculous to watch on a night in, night out basis, because you get to watch these guys that all really do look so different. For the longest time, I jokingly wanted Talen Horton-Tucker to be a Maverick just so him and Luka could be like the round mounds of rebound, like destroying people as they barreled down the lane over and over again.
If Grant Williams could get one rebound, that could do that. But it's kind of hard to get when you get one rebound.
No, for sure. Well, do we have anything like we could probably meander and talk about all sorts of things with this game? Do we have anything else that we want to really hit on that we haven't done yet?
Just the only other thing, and I mean, you mentioned it earlier, is I wouldn't take too much away from this game just because of how much they were missing, both in a good and a bad way, because the thought process is immediately, hey, the Mavericks were missing Kyrie and Tim Hardaway Jr., and that really hurts the offense and all of this. And that's true. But on the other side of that is missing Kyrie and Tim Hardaway Jr. also means that you're missing them as defenders, which is a positive on that end as well. So it kind of goes both ways. Obviously, you miss more offensively than you lose defensively, at least with Kyrie. So, but that is just something. It just makes them completely different. I'm not saying better or worse. It just makes them completely different not to have them, and especially Kyrie, it does make them worse not to have them.
I do think we owe it to ourselves to painfully acknowledge the Latvian laser just pouring in 16 points in 11 minutes, 3 of 3 from beyond the arc, including 6 free throws from stupid Mavs fouls. Guess how many points the Mavericks lost by? 6 points. Congratulations on fouling Davis Bertans.
To be clear, foul.
Well, the second one might have been. Like, you don't get your hand in the pocket like that, like Seth did. That one looked rough, but it's still, you just go through that Thunder roster and you're like, man, I like those guys. I like all those guys.
They had 8 people scoring double figures tonight. 8 people. The Mavs had 5, I think, but they had 8 people scoring double figures. Like, that's just, they're way deeper. Like, you look at them, and it's a fact of life that they are. I don't want to put that they've had more bites at the apple from the way they chose to build the team and the way the team came together as far as the first round picks and the Paul George trade and all of that good stuff. And then the Sam Presti just ultra processing. But
yeah,
if you look at them, they've got, first round pick, like everyone on their team is a first round pick, basically, like everyone. And the Mavs have Luka and Kyrie.
Hey, Lugens Dort was not a first round pick. And that dude, did you see it was almost like a Dirk Nowitzki fade away.
The super high one?
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that was when I was like, this game is over. And that was like the 6th shot of the game. I'm like, okay, and then I continued to watch.
So I remember very early in Dort's career, he's actually changed his 3-point motion a little bit. But he used to shoot moonballs. Like, his natural 3 used to be super high. So when he shot that, I kind of thought of that, but I was also just like, man, if he makes that, that's going to be a rough day for Dallas. And it ended up being, to me, like, the other thing, you're looking for takeaways is just, man, we're all fans of this team. Like, enjoy the game. I know they lost and everything, but you got to watch a ton of different things. You got to watch Luka go supernova. Lively, you get to look at for the future. Like, just enjoy the ride, man. Like, this team isn't going to win a title. Like, I want to be positive, but I can't say that. Like, they're not going to win a title. So if you're looking for something as a fan, I don't want to tell anybody how to be a fan. I'm not trying to keep how to be a fan. But just enjoy the ride, man. Enjoy the lively dunks. Enjoy Luka being special. Enjoy some of the passes Luka threw tonight, even though they led to misses. Just enjoy watching the game if you can find it. If you can get the ability to watch it.
I think that's right. All right, man. My wife is telling me I need to wrap this up, so I'm going to go do that. Guys, I'm going to go relocate my house and head downstairs, and we'll do our other live show. Thanks so much for hanging out. This has been Pod Mavericks After Dark. It's been Kirk Henderson and Matthew Phillips. Matt, thanks so much for joining us. I think that's it. Everybody, thanks so much, and we'll see you in a few minutes or see you next week or later on in the week when the Mavs play. Go Mavs.